Hey everyone, I'm back with another House of the Dragon video. This is one I wanted to do shortly after the first episode, but it felt like it was a little too soon. Now, with everything that happened in the Lord of the Tides, this is the perfect time to discuss Aegon's prophecy about the White Walkers and how it impacts the show, the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, and even what they might do to fix Game of Thrones. I know a lot of people were annoyed when in episode 1 Viserys mentioned the prophecy to Rhaenyra. Some people were like, don't remind me of how screwed up the end of Game of Thrones was. No more prince that was promised. It triggered some people's Dan and Dave PTSD. And I get it. It's completely understandable. I was taken a little aback too, but it wasn't just something concocted by the writers of the show, but part of George's lore. In an interview George did a few years ago, he said, there's a lot of speculation that he, Aegon, in some sense saw what was coming 300 years later and wanted to unify the Seven Kingdoms to be better prepared for the threat that he eventually saw coming from the north, the threat we're dealing with in A Song of Ice and Fire. Now let's look first on how it impacts House of the Dragon. In the last episode, we saw how the tie-in worked well on the show. It's a motivating factor for Rhaenyra to take the throne. She was a bit hesitant, but wanted her father to reassure her that he believed in the prophecy. She feels obligated to fulfill this responsibility. And on the flip side, Viserys on his deathbed mentions Aegon the Conqueror, and Alicent runs with this to claim he wants her son Aegon on the throne. So it works in terms of a storytelling element here. So, what about the big picture? After taking some time to consider the insertion of the prophecy so soon in episode 1, and with George so closely involved with this show, I felt like it was him reclaiming the narrative from the mess Dan and Dave made of things. It was like planting a banner in the ground and saying, what you're seeing now is canon. So, as terrible as Arya coming in like a flying squirrel and killing the Night King was, how pointless Jon's arc became, and how Dany was a victim of character assassination, they're going to want us to put all of that aside and make a clean slate. Yeah, that's asking a lot, I know. But I think by providing a quality show now, George, Ryan Condal, and the rest of the creative talent are trying to build us a bridge to get there. I believe they're going to eventually try and fix the ending. And there are two ways they could do it. They can sift through the wreckage of what Dan and Dave did and construct a new, better ending through Kit Harington's Jon spinoff that is being considered by HBO. This is possible. It would probably be the easiest route from a storytelling perspective. Although Dexter tried to do this a year ago, fix their bad ending, and somehow they managed to be the only TV series ever to have two terrible series finales. But that's a whole other disaster, one I'm still trying to forget. The biggest problem, though, with the Jon Snow Targaryen show is that Dan and Dave already put George's story through the wood chipper. Even before they completely burned it to the ground in season 8, they left out key elements from the books, like young Griff, aka Aegon, the complex Dorne plot, and Lady Stoneheart, just to name 3. If George really wants this story to be told properly, they're going to have to do a complete reboot. Obviously, it's too soon. The actors and the series are too fresh in our minds. And while DC and Marvel often swap out new Batmans and Spider-Mans at a head-spinning rate, people are not going to accept a new Game of Thrones just yet. But I think if they tell the full story of House of the Dragon, and they do it well, and that's not just our current series, because Ryan Condal recently said that House of the Dragon looks like it's going to basically stand for a succession of series. So if they do this one right, and then give us a series about Aegon's conquest and what happens following the dance, and then the Blackfyre Rebellion, right up to Dany's father, Aerys, the Mad King, I believe they can build a bridge in which the audience will be wanting that full story again. This will take many years, but I think it's the path they're on and they're set to do long term. Being that this is a fantasy series, it gives them a lot of leeway with what they could do. Here's one example. They could take the disaster that Dan and Dave made and work it into the Mad King. They could have Ares going increasingly crazy because he has dragon dreams, like Helena does in the House of the Dragon. He's tormented by images of the White Walkers and just continues to lose his mind. The events of Game of Thrones that we saw in the original show could be made out as visions or a possible future in his twisted mind. And we could even lead right up to him shouting, "Burn them all," in conjunction with a vision of Dany's attack on King's Landing. And everything that happened can be explained as part of his madness. This would actually be a fitting epitaph for Dan and Dave's messed up story, something out of the Mad King's mind. That's just one way they could do it. There are many ways. Maybe and they'll just opt for the easy way out in the Jon spinoff too. We'll see. But I think something larger is planned. So what do you think? How would you fix Game of Thrones? Either way, I think we're just at the start of a very long and exciting journey for this franchise. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you're interested in more House of the Dragon content, listen to Caraxes and subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.